what happened back in the early 80s here in Los Angeles, what was known as the Los Angeles Fetus Disposal Scandal. Ronald Reagan, the president at the time, called it a national tragedy. Well, like I said, it's a hard story.
Our story concerns abortion and began, strangely enough, in this relatively peaceful suburb of Los Angeles. Malvin Weisberg, a pathologist, owned a large storage container which he kept in his backyard. When he failed to make the final 2 payments, it was repossessed.
We made a decision to repossess it because his check did not clear the bank, and so we sent the truck out to pick up the container.
I rolled out there and took the box up and started pulling it up. And it was so heavy, it just it broke the winch.
And we couldn't get it off the trailer, so we had to leave it on the trailer because it was too heavy. So I was asked by Nick to have a crew go down and unload the container at the other yard.
I got a radio call that from Ron Gillette, the foreman, and he said the men were throwing up and there was something really wrong.
One of them fell down and hit me right in front of my feet. And it was opened up, and there it was. It was a mutilated body. And the more closer I looked at it, it was a human body.
And when I came to work the following day, I saw it myself. I couldn't believe it. And just little bitty babies, just all torn to pieces. Their heads chopped off, arms, legs, it just makes you sick to see something like that. Well, really, it's just, it makes you want to cry when you see something like that.
Starting at the very front of this container, it was just wall clear to the ceiling and clear to the sides, filled with them.
I really don't want to witness it again. Not what I saw.
When it was all said and done, over 16,500 fetuses were pulled from that shipping container, as well as from the garage of Malvin Weisberg's home. Almost 200 of them were over 20 weeks gestation, I think like 193 or 196. And the oldest one, believe it or not, was close to 30 weeks.
So we asked for an investigation by the district attorney and the coroner's office. We found approximately 190 were over 20 weeks of age. I think some as old as 25, 27 weeks.
A lot of people, it pissed a lot of people off. There was a lot of controversy. Like I said, Ronald Reagan called it a national disaster and even wrote something that was read here at the service. But it's right here. In memory of the 16,500 precious unborn buried here October 6, 1985. It's crazy. Now, after reading the stone, you might be asking yourself one question. If they found the shipping container in 1982, and the stone reads October 6, 1985 is whenever the precious unborn were buried here, how come it took so long? Well, there was a lot of people a lot of organizations who were very unhappy with what happened, of course, and even more so, unhappy with what the plans were to deal with them. Now, after hearing that, it's pretty messed up, right? But here's basically what it came down to. There were organizations who believed that the remains were tissue and should be cremated, not buried. And then there were organizations who believed that they were people who should be buried and not cremated.
We had a court order that would allow us to bury these infants, being a humane act. And the ACLU comes in again saying that this is just tissue. We want to incinerate them, and there's no need for a burial. Because if you had a burial, somehow that's going to create a problem. Problem for whom?
See what I mean? For a couple years this went on, as well as trying to determine the cause of death for some of them. I think that they performed autopsies on 20 or 40 of the fetuses.
Mr. Antonovich contacted Mr. Gutierrez.
Glenn Wong is a funeral director for a major Los Angeles mortuary.
Asked us to go ahead and handle the burial of the fetuses. How I came involved was they were asking if it were possible to have anyone photograph these fetuses, and I so happened to be also a photographer.
How many fetuses were actually involved in the autopsies?
There were approximately about 44, if I'm correct.
And why were the autopsies performed?
They were to find out why or what was the reason of the cause of death. Now, I've seen some of these fetuses, and believe me, they were apart. There were some where the eyes were bulging and some where the chest cavity was ripped open. I do remember one where I saw a hand and a feet all apart. So it was kind of like the hands were intact, the feet were intact, and everything else was more like just a little potpourri, a little of everything, and that was it. That kind of turned me.
Now, this is something that boggles my mind. Now, keep in mind, the 20-foot long shipping container was filled, all right? By the time that they put the 16,500 estimated bodies here, remains here, they buried 6 pine coffins filled with the remains right here. 6 pine coffins. I don't understand how a 20-foot shipping container condenses down to pine boxes, only 6 of them.